From RareGem Productions, this is Let's Get It Together.
Support for Let's Get It Together comes from the Kwame Building Group, delivering total value through pure construction and program management services.
Support also from Proficient Chiropractic, 2050 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri. Call 314-447-0725 with Doctors Everett and Tipler, changing the way St. Louisans think about their health. In the classroom. Grab a notepad. Today we welcome autumn, the fall season on ABC with a little color. Blackish.
We could have called the show The Johnsons or, Keeping It Real or Urban or something like that. But I felt like we wanted to make a statement.
What is your hope, Ken?
My hope is that, it goes on and opens the doors for a lot of other shows and a lot of other people of color. I really believe and think it's a good show. But even if it's not necessarily for you, supporting this show actually opens the door for other people who may have a show that is for you.
You got to know that. We'll be right back. I'm Jade Harrell. Power up with the positive with Let's Get It Together from anywhere you go. Download it today with the iHeartRadio app. Let's Get It Together, another positive production of RareGem Productions.
Let's get it together.
Come on in, everyone, and take your seats, please.
This is the classroom, where we get a front row seat to expert instruction, information, and access. You won't leave the way you came. This classroom is all about knowledge, and knowledge is power, and the power is yours. Now, let's get it together. Like any parents, Dre and Rainbow Johnson want to give their children the best, but their offspring's childhood is turning out to be much different than their own. They now realize at least two things. There's a price to pay for giving their children more than what they ever had, and these loving parents are totally unprepared for the fallout. Executive producer and creator Kenya Barris brings Blackish to ABC, a new family comedy that takes a fun yet bold look at one man's determination to establish a sense of cultural identity for his family. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am fantastic. And yourself?
I'm well.
Yes, you are. You got a show coming out.
I know. I know.
Oh, my gosh.
Scared.
Yeah, right? How does that feel?
Scary.
Is it?
Very scary.
It is. Of course it is. I mean, you're the creator, executive producer. You're putting your whole self out there.
Very scary.
I know. But look, you're doing it, and you're doing it even though you're scared. So good for you, first of all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm joined by Kenya Barris, executive producer and creator of Blackish, debuting this fall, making fall a little more colorful on ABC. Airs on Wednesdays in the evening, depending on where you are in the country. But this is a big deal. Can you talk to me? It is a big deal. It really is. I know. I'm not helping you any with that anxiety right now. Leave it to your loved ones to just give you that extra boost, Oh my gosh. Well, your laugh sounds joyful, and it's heartwarming to hear you right now. Share the premise. Tell us about your baby.
It's based on my babies, my actual family.
Oh.
My wife's a doctor, mixed race, black and white, and we have 5 kids, and, both kind of came from lesser than, I'm from Inglewood, she's from L.A., and we've both sort of known each other since high school, kind of grew up together, and worked hard, and, we're very, very blessed and lucky, and had support of our friends and family, and luckily we've been able to do some things that gave our kids a different life than we had, which is sort of what you're always kind of taught to do, give your kids more than you have. But I looked around and I started realizing that in giving your kids more than you have, like, what do you sort of lose out? What do they lose out on those experiences that you grew up with? Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the premise of the show. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the universe that speaks, whether you're, black, Asian, Latino, from Middle America, from the South. When you go to a different situation and you're trying to sort of, quote unquote, better your life, what about those things that you had when you were in a different place? And some of those things are really important to you.
Yes, they are. And that actually speaks to the idea that, is where I am better, which is kind of been this,
Absolutely.
That's been a lifelong kind of question, especially when we talk about things like integration. And this is a question that we all deal with. I grapple with it too.
Absolutely. Where are you from?
Okay, so here we go. I'm from Denver.
Okay.
And I met my husband in Atlanta.
Okay, where do you live now?
I am in St. Louis.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
racial conversations and
Oh, my
tensions
God.
are
Yes.
at an all-time high here. Went to school at Hampton.
Okay, I
in
went to Clark.
Virginia. Okay, hey, HBC. I love it. Oh, so you know this very deeply. And are you from California?
I'm from Los Angeles,
Yeah, okay. So then share with me the story behind the name. Why did you choose Blackish?
I chose Blackish, and it was, people have asked me that because I've seen all the flack I've got over it. Like, would you change it? I'm like, oh. And honestly, I don't think I would, and I'll explain to you why.
Yes.
We could have called the show The Johnsons or, Keeping It Real or Urban or something like that. But I felt like we wanted to make a statement.
Okay.
We wanted the show to be about what it was, and we didn't want to pull away from that. We wanted to say that it's a show that has something to say. And we want people immediately when they tune in to say that. And sometimes that's going to be a little off-putting when people, especially out of context. I don't know if you've got a chance to see the pilot yet.
Yes.
But when people haven't seen the pilot, I think, one of the big things is people feel like maybe we're trying to define what black is, and we're not, or maybe they think it's white producers taking a slap at black people. And all these things and all this distrust totally makes sense to me, especially with the way, black culture, has been handled in society. I totally understand it. But what it meant for me was, I think now, especially looking at my kids who are in private school and, one of the few faces of color in their classes. Yes. They are not exactly the version that I remember of what black was growing up. They're sort of a little bit less, or they're a little bit blackish of what I remember, that type of thing. But they're still, they're black kids, but they're not what I remembered what black was. They're a little different than that. And at the same time, I look around at their little friends who are all different ethnicities and cultures, and they're a little bit more than I remember.
Right.
They're they're in an additive way. They're blackish. They've gotten a little bit, and I kind of feel like that's what youth culture has become. Yeah. Sort of blackish and Latino-ish and Asian-ish. Like we're all seeing like right now, we're kind of a homogenized society more than ever before. Sure. And I wanted to sort of talk about that and have a show that embraces that and does it through the the lens of our main character, Andre, who's played by Anthony Anderson.
Oh, yes, and that had to be a riot. So when we look at this, though, there's kind of two lenses that are. So we can say blackish, but we can also say, as we were talking about, I'm trying to make a better way for my children, give them opportunities that I didn't have. Now, that does, historically for us here in the U.S., go back to race, but it's a big deal about class-ish.
Yes, I do think we're living in this country. It's way more about socioeconomics than race and everywhere you look. I know that because what it basically happens is your socioeconomic state puts you in a predominantly black community or predominantly white community. It really determines a lot of what your experiences are going to be. And honestly, whether or not we want to admit it, we're sort of in the have and the have-nots. Yep. And I think that's what this show sort of talks about too, is that this family has sort of risen a little bit in their socioeconomic status, and it's giving them different opportunities, not better, it's just different. That's right. And it's making him have to look at what he remembers his situation being when he was much poorer growing up.
That's right. And then you deal with that because you're also realizing that, okay, some of the activities that they're able to engage in and some of the conversations that they're able to have, it goes way beyond race. They start to experience different things in culture and art.
Absolutely. Gender.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. And let's go even into sciences and just so many things that once you have a better vantage point, a clearer view, so to speak, I'm trying to caution myself on better, but different.
Yes,
and even some of those, and I love that you said, what are some of the things we're missing out on? Like, our children knowing those fundamental things about saving and being not
absolutely,
being wasteful
or we can go to the more down home things. My kids don't know that bacon grease makes better makes better chicken. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's right. Or even sitting down and eating that chicken together.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
You said it. You said it. I posted a fruit cup that I made for my kids because I had a little extra time when I got off of the show, and there were probably 200 or so likes on that. Oh wow, she made her own snack for the kids. It's just
and you're
really
like
is something. Yeah,
it's so interesting that would get 200 likes. You're like, I just made some food.
I did. I did. That's huge, which tells me how relevant this program is. So talk about your executive partnership team. My goodness.
I'm been very, very blessed to be surrounded by just a great group of people.
Absolutely.
My manager, who happens to manage myself, Tracee Ross and Anthony Anderson. His name is Brian Dobbins. He's one of the executive producers. He's a really bright guy who manages a lot of talent in Hollywood. If someone is working, they probably have gone to him. He's one of the only black managers at a predominantly white big management firm here. Mm-hmm. Anthony Anderson is my other executive producing partner. Yep. Laurence Fishburne is my other partner, who is an Oscar-nominated, just thespian, actor's actor.
Yes.
My Larry Wilmore, who was my partner that we, after I sold the pilot, he came on to help me do the pilot and stay with me for his first few episodes, and he's a mentor and brother to me, who's now going to have his own show on Comedy Central. He's been around forever, created the Bernie Mac show.
Oh, wow, yeah.
My partner, Jonathan Groff, who's co-running the show with me now, is amazing. He's a 5-time Jeopardy champion who's ran multiple shows and just is a very, very brilliant guy, and really helping me get the show into the place that we want it to go. I feel like I could not have been put around better people.
Right. Well, I asked you that deliberately because I produce positive programs. That's strictly my mission. And I try to encourage people to get around, surround yourself with positive, engaging, progressive, forward-thinking people. And so that's evidence here. And you really emphasize that by saying, I don't feel like that I could have done that without them.
I could not. And Helen Suglin, too, is also one of my...
Oh, yeah. Don't fool around and get us in trouble. You did not say.
No, I thought about when you said being smart. She's been very supportive. She's run Cinema Gypsy with Laurence Fishburne. I think it takes a village to do anything, from raising kids to making a TV show to, making a good meal. I think that, that food has to be grown. And I think that it all really comes together. And I have those are my executives, but we have an amazing crew. We have an amazing cast.
There you go.
The executives at the network, at the studio, they've all gotten behind it. I don't know where you're at, but hopefully you see the posters and billboards up the way I see them here.
Yes, I do. Yes. You're getting love here, too. Yes.
Good. They've really gotten behind the show in a way to say that they're not, this isn't a passive swing for them. Mm-hmm. They're committed to this, and I really do appreciate Paul Lee and Sami Falvey and Jameel Hunter and Lynn Berry and all those executives at ABC.
Absolutely. So then you would expect this is not going to be a one-season run.
I have no idea.
What's your hope? What is your hope, Kenya?
My hope is that, it goes on and I said this before. My hope is that it goes on and opens the doors for a lot of other shows and a lot of other people of color to do other things. I think that is one of the reasons I think the support of this show is so important. I don't think it's a bad show. I really believe and think it's a good show. But even if it's not necessarily for you, supporting this show actually opens the door for other people who may have a show that is for you.
You got to know that. So here's something else you're doing. You're bringing us back together with something we can watch together as a family.
I hope so. That's what I watch it with my kids.
Media has changed so much. They can go off and everybody in their own corners doing their own thing. But couldn't we just at least come back together and enjoy this together? So good deal on that.
That was a big part of the plan, so I'm glad that you feel that way.
I do, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity. I'm trying to carve out those things because I've realized that we've gotten away from that. On the go so much, we want to be in each activity, just looking at, what am I possibly missing with my strive to do so much more?
I agree.
Yep. So you said you were nervous and scared. If you could change anything, what would that be now that it's got some air on it?
If I could change anything? Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. I don't know if there's much I would change. I think that I would, this is going to sound really strange. This has been such an amazing blessing.
Yes.
I don't know if I can say something I would change because even the bad things have taught me something.
There you go.
So I think that it sort of has happened as it's supposed to happen, and no matter what happens tomorrow and, I wake up Thursday in the ratings or whatever, this experience can't be taken from me.
No.
So I'm in that moment. Of course, I want it to do well, but this has been such an amazing ride. I would not trade it for anything.
That's right. I say, well, if the Lord stopped blessing us today,
I agree.
I have so much to give thanks
I agree.
for.
I got to do something a lot of people do not get to do.
I'm saying, and I'm glad to be a part of this ride with you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I am. So share with me a time that you've laughed out loud on this, that you really got it.
Every day.
Really?
I think for me on the pilot, the moment that sort of got me on the pilot was the conversation where, I love the little kids. I love all the kids, but the dinner conversation. And just seeing those kids at those dinner table reminds me so much of my own house.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that just organically comes up just makes me smile and think about my house. And like, each of my kids feels like they're one of the kids on the show.
Yeah.
And my youngest kid's like, I don't have a kid because he's the fifth one. And we're like, well, she's still young enough. Maybe we'll have one. So it's very funny to see them sort of reflect themselves in the kids and say that's my character. So that's an I cannot. Right. I would not change this.
That's right. How does it compare with your other works?
I think the other work prepared me for this in terms of the actual work part of it, but the experience, there is no comparison.
There you go. Well, send out the invitation, Kenya. I'm glad that you were able to join us today.
You are absolutely invited. If you're ever in town and you guys want to stop by and meet the cast, please do.
Absolutely. I might make a trip just for that.
Okay. All right. That sounds good.
No, but I would like to keep that connection because, again, like I said, I'm all about positive programming. Much of mine is in audio, but all of that can most definitely support what you're doing out there.
I love it. And thank you for your support. I really do appreciate it.
You got it, sir. You got it. Right. Thank you for opening the doors, making the ways, and sticking to it even though you were scared. Give us, give me something for my teenagers, for my young people, and
sure.
Taking on something that could be and seem so big and daunting. And how to work through that. Give them a little something to go with.
I just think that, I would never have in a million years thought that I'd be on the phone with you talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I know it sounds a little bit like we've heard it before, but, you have to have dreams. And you have to sort of stay the path and not let, there's going to be a lot of things that come in your way that seem at the moment funner because that's sort of how these things present themselves, but realize that, the real fun is yet to come, and take your time.
Yes, absolutely. Kenya Barris, creator and executive producer of Blackish, Wednesday nights on ABC. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you. Have a good day. I appreciate it.
And blessings to you and your family.
You too.
Creator and executive producer Kenya Barris. You can enjoy Blackish featuring Anthony Anderson, Tracee Ellis Ross, and Laurence Fishburne on Wednesdays. Premieres tonight on ABC. Be sure to share and support Kenya Barris. Share this interview and keep connected at OneRareGem.com. That's OneRareGem.com. Connect with us on Facebook, ONERGP. At RareGem Online on Twitter and OneRareGem on Instagram.
Let's Get It Together is made possible by the grace, mercy, and provision of our God. Each day, try Him, trust Him, and learn more in the Bible each day. Make Let's Get It Together your access to information, education, and opportunity. Subscribe to the podcast. Find information about our guests. News, notes, and video are ready for you at LGI2.com. That's LGI2.com.
This week, get a fresh new outlook. Let's get it together. Be inspired, informed, encouraged, and entertained. Let's get it together. In the classroom each day at 10 a.m. Information, access, and opportunity. Let's get it together.
Special thanks to Selena J., Anthony Wise, Robin Boyce, Al McDonald, the RareGem family, Harold, Clear Channel Radio, and Christopher Harrell.
Support for Let's Get It Together comes from the Kwame Building Group, delivering total value through pure construction and program management services.
From RareGem Productions, this is Let's Get It Together.